Hello, I'm Jesse, and in this presentation, I'd like to talk about Singapore's membership in the World Bank. Although we no longer have as much dependency on the World Bank as before, I would still like to talk about the inherent nature of our relationship with them, as well as whether Singapore being in the World Bank is a boon or a bane. Firstly, what is the World Bank? The World Bank is an international financial institution with 189 member countries that was established in 1944 with the primary goal of reducing global poverty and promoting economic development. It is composed of two main institutions, one which provides loans and other financial assistance to middle and high-income countries for development projects, while the other focuses on providing grants and low-interest loans to the world's poorest countries. Singapore became a member of the World Bank on August 4, 1966. At the time, Singapore was still a developing country, and the World Bank provided financial assistance to support the country's economic development. Since then, Singapore has continued to work closely with the World Bank, both as a borrower and as a contributor to the bank's development efforts in other countries. In recent years, Singapore has also become a donor to the World Bank's Fund for Low-Income Countries. For Singapore, being a small island nation with limited resources is not easy. So how has the World Bank helped Singapore? The World Bank has played an important role in supporting Singapore's economic development by providing loans and technical assistance to help the country build its physical infrastructure. In the 1970s and 1980s, the World Bank also provided further support to Singapore's economic transformation by financing investments in education, health, and water supply infrastructure. More recently, the World Bank has continued to support Singapore's efforts to promote sustainable development and address new challenges, such as climate change. Now, I would like to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of being in the World Bank. Firstly, as a member of the World Bank, Singapore has access to financing and technical assistance for development projects. The World Bank provides loans and other forms of financing at competitive rates, which can help to support the country's infrastructure development and other key priority areas. Secondly, Singapore's membership in the World Bank also allows it to play an active role in shaping the institution's policies and priorities. As a small but influential member of the World Bank, Singapore can provide input and contribute to the decision-making processes of the institution. But what are the downsides of being in the World Bank? Firstly, there is dependency on external financing. By accepting loans and other forms of financial assistance from the World Bank, Singapore may become more dependent on external sources of financing, which could limit the country's financial independence. Secondly, there is also the risk of indebtedness. Taking on too much debt from the World Bank could put Singapore at risk of indebtedness, which could limit the government's ability to allocate resources to other priority areas. Now, there are several opinion pieces and book reports online which discuss the matter of Singapore's membership in the World Bank. In The World Bank and Singapore's Development Strategy by Tila Awar Singh in the Straits Times of 2019, it argues that Singapore's membership in the World Bank has been critical to the country's economic success, and that we would not have gone as far without the help of the World Bank. Another opinion piece titled The World Bank, Can Singapore's Dependence on External Financing Be Good?, takes a different point of view and raises some concerns on Singapore's dependence on external financing from the World Bank, and argues that the country needs to be careful to avoid over-borrowing. A book report called Singapore and the World Bank, the Post-Colonial Era by Rohan Bedi talks about Singapore's relationship with the World Bank from the 1960s to the present day. And the overview of the book report says that Singapore would not have been able to progress as much without the help of the World Bank. Now, in order to get a sense of what people might issue on the matter, a survey was conducted to see the response when the issue was brought up. After providing an overview of the World Bank, I listed out some of the benefits Singapore enjoys from the participation of the World Bank, specifically that Singapore has access to financing and technical assistance for development projects. Now, for the question, would you say that this particular factor is of utmost importance for Singapore to survive? 70% of the participants answered yes. We showed that most of them felt that Singapore would likely not have come as far and progressed as far without the World Bank's assistance. After that, I provided them with some of the negative impacts of being in the World Bank, specifically about being too dependent on external financing. Now for the question, do you think Singapore being overly dependent on external sources of financing is detrimental for us? Around 60% answered yes, which shows that around half of the participants feel that Singapore becoming too overly dependent on external financing could be a bad thing, but not necessarily detrimental. Now, for the final question of do you think that Singapore should remain in the World Bank, 95% answered yes. This shows that although aware of the possible negative impacts of being in the World Bank, most people still think that we need to remain in the World Bank in order for us to continue progressing. Now, for our conclusion of is Singapore's membership in the World Bank a boon or a bane? Overall, I think that Singapore's membership in the World Bank is more of a boon than a bane. The World Bank provides Singapore with access to financing, technical assistance, and policy expertise that can support the country's development efforts and contribute to its continued economic success. The World Bank's financing can help to support Singapore's environmental sustainability efforts. Of course, as with any international organization, there are potential downsides and risks to consider, as mentioned just now. However, I think that the benefits of Singapore's membership in the World Bank outweighs the potential risks and downsides. The World Bank is a valuable partner for Singapore in its efforts to promote economic development and reduce poverty. And the country's participation in the institution has helped to support its remarkable economic success over the past several decades. Thank you. This is the references and citations that I've made. The EPA citation for the book reports and the opinion pieces are not listed here. Thank you.